What's good, everybody? It's your brother Mad Black, the most dangerous and the most toxic black man on the internet. The brother who told you not to smoke the residue out of that pipe, but you did it anyway, and now you're in the bathroom doing the limbo. And I am black up in your face again with some more pro black commentary. So, very recently, I was made aware of a story of a police officer in Sacramento who basically overdosed on some fentanyl that he had taken off of a suspect. And the particulars of this story are interesting to say the least. I went to, I guess, just do some more research on it, and it was hard at first because when I typed in to my Google search cop overdoses on fentanyl, literally like six other stories of the same caliber popped up. So obviously, this is a trend within the police department, and not just in Sacramento, but across the country, where you have these police officers getting high on the job and having to be saved from overdosing. There's a couple of stories out here, but the one I'm talking about is the one featuring a cop named Marvin Morales, and he basically what he was doing, or this is what he claimed he was doing. First he tried to make it seem like, I guess, that he was just like he touched this user's pipe, this drug addict's pipe, and I guess the fentanyl transferred through his skin, and that's what caused him to have a seizure and overdose in the bathroom. But the truth of the matter is, he smoked it. He's a drug user. I'm going to get more into his drug history in a minute, but what he said at first, like when the first lie didn't work, his second lie was, well, I thought that this was just some plain old methamphetamines, and I like to smoke meth residue in order to keep myself awake so I can fill out police reports. That's what he said, folks. That was his second excuse as to why he smoked this pipe. He thought it was meth, turned out to be fentanyl, and it almost took his ass up out of here. So I can't play the whole video, and even though it's all over YouTube, and I'll provide a link, you can watch the whole thing. But I think if I play it, they'll try to give me like a strike or something like that for putting it up here, because I've done this before where I've tried to talk about drug use, especially if it's drug use that has nothing to do with black people. Like if it was a black person overdosing or getting high, then apparently it's okay. But when I try to showcase white people using drugs or whatever, YouTube has a fit. And this guy, he's not even white, he's Hispanic. But if I try to show a cop getting high like this in an actual video, if I show the actual video, they start getting all upset. So I won't show that in its entirety. You'll just hear me talking over little parts of it here. But he smoked the pipe, and one of his colleagues found him in the bathroom, bent over backwards from the fentanyl. Okay, he was almost out of here, and his partner basically ran to one of their patrol cars where they have Narcan, because I've talked about this before on my old channel, how the police departments, they have decided that they're going to save opioid users by giving them Narcan. Right now, once again, when it was black people getting high on crack, it was put these Negroes in jail. White people use heroin, white people use opioids, and we have to save their life. That's the priorities of modern policing, to save people who use opioids. But this cop was using, passed out, and his colleague went and got some Narcan for him, and they gave him one dose, they gave him two doses, called the ambulance, they gave him another dose, and I think they actually wanted to give him at least 4 doses. Like they might have done a 5th one, but I'm pretty sure throughout the video they gave him 4 doses of Narcan to finally wake him up, right? And as time goes on, they did some investigating and some research into this police officer. I guess he's been let go or he's been allowed to quit the police department, not doing any jail time, which he should be, getting high on the job, but and having an illegal substance like that. But it turned out that he's been a drug user. So like they tested his hair and found that, the amount of drugs that he had in his system, he's had to been using even before he became a cop. So this is not something new for him. It's not new for him to be smoking methamphetamines, right? Or smoking weed or whatever. And what's funny to me is, how in the hell did he get on the police force with the fact that he had drugs in the system to the point where it's saturated into his hair follicles, right? And then they can tell how long he's been using, right? It makes me think that they didn't give a damn that he tested positive for anything. They let him on the police force anyway, or he had the hookup. That's a lot of these police departments, a lot of people there, they know each other. So if you do take a drug test, they just throw that drug test out, or, even if it comes back positive, they just say they look past it, right? And they just think that, I'm getting my boy on the police force with me. That's how it winds up, where you have a whole town basically works on the same police force and everyone knows each other, which in my opinion leads to corruption. But that's a whole nother story. I might do another story about the police where that actually does happen. But it'll be like the whole town either works on the police force, or they all work at the same correctional facility, or they all work at the same jail. So people are just allowed to get away with these crimes. And it's very interesting that we always talk about the drug culture in quote unquote black community, or the drug culture in black music, but we never hear about the drug culture that goes on the police force. And a lot of that does happen. And not just opioids, but the classic alcoholism that goes on in police departments. You got other drugs like cocaine, right? Because these officers are working late hours, so cocaine and methamphetamines that helps them stay awake and keeps them going. Or some of them get addicted to the opioids. That's how they power down at the end of the day. That's how they cool themselves. Or they're doing combinations of these drugs. You do some sort of speed before, right, to keep you awake. And then in order to get your system to calm down, you're doing some sort of opioid, right? And then, of course, you got a whole slew of these prescription drugs that they like to use as well. So these are the people that are doing your traffic stops. These are the people that are, knocking on your door and doing quote unquote wellness checks. And we hear these stories about, like, these police, like, they're freaking out, or they were scared for their lives, or they heard something somewhere and they had to just let off some shots. And now it makes total sense as to why that is, because these people are high. That's why they freak out the way they do, right? And that's not an excuse for their behavior. What I'm saying is, these people are, when you're hopped up on cocaine or meth or some sort of speed drug or some sort of opioid, and then you're hearing things, or you think somebody's holding a weapon, that's why. And usually they're supposed to do a drug test after you've been involved with a shooting, but you never really hear about these cops being tested properly for any type of drugs. But I guarantee you, if you checked a lot of these police officers who have killed somebody, there were drugs in that person's system, right? So, if anyone here wants to, elaborate on this story or give some more context to it, that's what I know about it so far. But this is apparently a thing. Like I said, when I went to look up information about this story in particular, at least 5 other situations where a cop was ODing, and 5 other videos where a cop is ODing on fentanyl or some other opioid popped up. And these cops, their lives have to be saved by their partners. Now, their partners probably know they were using drugs. Their partners might even be getting the drugs too, right? But, these police are just as much a part of the street drug culture as the criminals are, because these cops are using the drugs, they're buying the drugs, or taking the drugs off of these dealers and selling it themselves. So you folks let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. I would love to hear your opinions on this particular story. Anyway, mad black, and I will be back with my foot on the devil's back.